You're listening to the Run for Your Lives podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And this is the Run for Your Lives podcast.
Yay! This episode is the end of season 4, other than a special episode 100 that we will tease several times throughout this episode, I'm sure. And then we'll finally get to know what it is at the very end of the episode after feedback, so stay tuned.
Yes.
Or scroll there and listen to it and then come back. But that's a weird thing to do. Just be patient, people.
Yeah. We got tons to tell you. As you know, this is our look back special.
Yes, of course. Yes. The kind of season finales, if you will, are our look back specials. And so it is time for the season 4 look back special, as we take a look at some of our favorite monsters, some of our favorite characters, some of our favorite movies/episodes. And even doing something a little special this week, or, this season, and doing a separate top 5 of also favorite movies, but spanning all the way back to episode 1, if we wish. Everything we've covered, we can look. And we pulled in different top 5 that are kind of different parameters. So logically, it doesn't make sense sometimes which ones get picked over others, but then they weren't in other seasons. But don't think about it.
No. This is us, after having done this podcast for 2 years, taking a look at the episodes and pulling out some that stand out to us. Mm-hmm. You may have other ideas. And hopefully, you responded when we put out the call for you to tell us what some of your favorites are from this season.
Yeah. Speaking in advance, hopefully we hear a lot from you.
Yes.
We will see when that feedback phone rings at the end of their time together today. We will see if you came through.
Hopefully. I hope so. I feel like Pake and I have talked about this a couple of times, like off the podcast, about how we constructed this season as far as some of the movies that we picked and the order of things, because usually that's what we do. Like we think and we plan out what we're going to do. This season we had a different approach, and it was more, it was less planned, but it was still just as thoughtful when we were coming up with the things that we wanted to do. We kind of were thinking about, what do we feel like this week? You want to do a disaster? Do you want to do a monster movie? Do we want to do an animated film? We kind of we were winging it sometimes. And I think it was a lot of fun. So
yeah,
we'll see. Whatever you guys think, let us know. Because, we did things a little bit different, and I really enjoyed the way season 4 turned out overall.
Yeah, it was fun. Definitely a season. No, but it was actually definitely a really good one. Yeah, it's very different. They've all been different in some way, just kind of the way that they flow and the different movies we picked. As we'll get into our top 5s later, especially monsters were a little different this season. Weren't necessarily your classic style monster movies, or does that, we're a little more abstract with some of them, which is interesting. Mm-hmm. It's always fun to talk that out.
Yeah. I'm really excited to get to break things down. And Pake and I do talk about what our picks are for the characters, movies, and monsters. But for the additional one that we're doing, the top 5 movies podcast ever, we did not talk to each other. So there could be some overlap. There might not be any overlap. I think I know 1 or 2 of the movies Pake picked, but I don't know for sure until we talk about it then.
Yeah. Yes. So as we get into our other lists shortly, as we do every season, yes, we have talked about it in advance to make sure there is no overlap. So with our top 5s, we'll run through them kind of hopefully quickly enough to where this isn't a 3-hour podcast. We've been doing pretty good with it lately. I don't know. Yeah. We talked a lot already. But yeah, so we know that you're getting a list of 10 different choices that we can really kind of run the gamut of the season and highlight a lot of really fun stuff.
Yeah, and usually we'll have, when we're going down our list offline, we'll have a lot of the same choices. This year or this season, we did not. So I think you guys are going to be interested in what we came up with.
Yeah. So, all right, with that, we might as well get started with it, right?
Absolutely. So, Pake, we'll start with characters, and I'll go first on this one. My number 5 for characters is Mallory Hayes, played by Sandra Bullock, from the movie Bird Box.
Yeah. Interesting. Good choice.
Yeah.
Mallory!
Honestly, I didn't like her character at first in the movie, but she really grew on me. She was really hard on the kids, and I really didn't want her to be, but I loved the arc for her, where she started and where she ended up at the end, realizing maybe she'd been a little bit too harsh. Mm-hmm. But she had the right idea in mind. She wanted to keep the kids safe, and I just really loved her story, like Mallory's story in this movie.
Yeah. Which, by the way, now that we've already talked about one, spoilers ahead for like all the movies that we've covered this season. Very possible, because as we want to talk about different moments, characters, whatever, we're going to talk about their arcs and things that happen in these movies. So spoilers ahead. So if you haven't watched all the movies that were covered in our season, just know that we might be talking about some stuff.
Oh yeah, we definitely will be. There's a lot to talk about.
Yes.
So, Pake, what is your number 5?
My number 5, I'm actually going to keep it pretty recent. One of the last movies that we covered. I am going to the Poseidon Adventure to talk about Reverend Scott. He takes my number 5 slot. Again, just if you listen to Poseidon Adventure episode, which was pretty recently, just a couple weeks ago, yeah, he's a lot. He's great. I was talking about, this movie was in the 70s. I was like, he's, as far as a reverend and as a preacher, he's very progressive and very thoughtful. I like his very kind of deconstructed way of thinking about things. So I was like, man, this is really cool. The way back then he was just like, forget about prayer. Let's actually do things that work and help and put our own work into things. And I think that was a really cool concept. And then to see that even though he was kind of hot-headed and very control-centric a lot, but it all came from a place of like shepherding his flock that he was given here. And again, talking about spoilers. But yeah, I mean, when it comes down to, even whenever some of the group may not really like him and is questioning what he's been doing, when push comes to shove at the end, he's willing to sacrifice himself for the group to make sure that they can escape and survive. And he does so willingly and happily. And, I think that was a really cool arc and a really cool character in any movie, but especially something in the 70s that they really highlighted that I think was really cool.
Yeah, I definitely appreciated his viewpoint. I thought it, like you said, it was very progressive. Gene Hackman did such a great job with that role. Mm-hmm. And I love how he never lost sight of the mission at hand, which was to get everyone out, even if he had to butt heads with them about things. He was really focused on getting everyone to safety. And in the end, sacrificed himself to save those that remained. And I think it was commendable. Glad that I got to share that movie with you. That you hadn't seen it before and you got to experience it. Which is something that happens with this podcast. We've talked about it
for
before.
Both of us. We get introduced to new things. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So, my number 4 is a mega structurist, Mr. Casey Houseman, from the 2022 movie Moonfall. Of course, he's played by John Bradley, who we all loved from Game of Thrones.
Yes.
I really liked his character, what he believed he really believed, and he wanted to save lives. He wanted to make things better. He wanted to help people, but no one would give him the time of the day or listen to him. Again, as with the case with many disaster films, there's always the one person who knows what's going on that no one wants to listen to.
Right.
It's like part of the recipe.
Yeah. Of course, in his instance, he kind of was like the off the wall, like conspiracy theorist kind of guy that you kind of would push off. Yeah. And then it turns out that everything that he says for once actually is right. And you're like, oh no, oh dang. What?
Exactly. Yeah.
And then he transforms into Clippy. So
I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that. That was one of the reasons. That movie may not have been the best movie we covered this season, but it's definitely memorable for John Bradley's portrayal of Casey Houseman.
Mm-hmm. My number 4. I'm just going to go with, I was going to say the one and only, but the whole point of the movie is there's like 4 of them. But my favorite Kiwi vampire of all time.
Oh, yes.
Taika Waititi himself, the mastermind as Viago. In What We Do in the Shadows, yes.
I'm so glad that we covered that movie. I know we had talked about covering it for a while. That's one thing about this season, I think, is we covered movies that we'd been waiting to cover or we thought about covering, and for some reason we hadn't done it yet.
Mm-hmm.
And then we finally decided, okay, now's the right time. Let's do it.
Get him. Yeah. Because he's so interesting. Because, I mean, as a vampire, which is usually such a monstrous figure in a lot of these movies, but, you know, Shadows, it's Taika Waititi.
Yes.
So there's a lot of comedy and a lot of tongue-in-cheekness to it. And so just seeing him as, like, the pleasant, like, trying to be the good roommate vampire who wants to keep everything clean and on a schedule, but he's also real messy when it comes to feeding time. So it's just a lot of great jokes and a lot of great, a lot of great visuals with him. Man.
Was one of the first movies from Taika that I saw.
Mm-hmm.
And it introduced me to his vision. And since they released a TV series, and I guess, his involvement, I'm not sure what his involvement is with the show, but because this came from his brain, I decided to give the TV show a chance as soon as it was, like, out, because I knew it was going to be amazing, and it has been. If you liked the movie and you haven't seen the show, what are you waiting for? Just go watch it.
Yes.
It's great.
Very good. And it's not running right now because season 4 has now ended. So go watch all of them. Binge all of it. 5 and 6 are coming.
What TV show do you know that gets renewed for 2 seasons? 5 and 6.
Not a whole lot of them.
Yeah, not many. All right. So my number 3 is Maddie from a movie we covered not that long ago called Hush. She's played by the amazing Kate Siegel. Of course, the movie was directed by Mike Flanagan.
Yeah.
And it was our first opportunity to cover a Flanagan movie on Run for Your Life. So I think we knocked it out of the park with this one. Maddie was such a strong character. So Maddie couldn't speak or hear. So she had to use her other senses to battle this killer who basically killed her best friend in front of her. And she was just so resilient. She used every available weapon that she had in the house to be able to take on the man. And I just thought she was amazing. I thought she was a strong female character, and I really appreciated what Kate Siegel brought to the role and how the movie was constructed.
Mm-hmm. It's cool to see like a really strong, badass survivor who is differently abled. And so it's...
Yes!
You don't see it a whole lot, and so it is cool. And yeah, Siegel gave such a great performance. And then Flanagan's just creepiness and the way he likes to frame things and shoot things. It's great.
I know. I appreciate the way they work together and how they develop their projects.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Maddie is my number 3. I mean, she was just so strong. And I appreciate the representation, the representation of a character who was differently abled.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it wasn't conventional. It wasn't the conventional home invasion horror movie that we've become used to.
Yeah.
It was different. There were different challenges for her. So, Peg, what do you have for number 3?
My number 3, going back a little earlier in the season, I like these like random setups with the characters. I don't know why I do them, but it's fun. So this time we're going to go with everybody's favorite 80s preteen metalhead. You don't want him falling into a pit full of demons, so back up, Terry. Please, back up.
Oh, Peg. I'm surprised, but I shouldn't be surprised.
Right.
Really.
I just resonated with that kid. I don't know what it was. I mean, just metalhead nerd who just ends up saving the day by knowing things that just only he would know, you know?
Yes. We haven't discussed if we'll cover the second one, but I feel like we have to.
Yes.
Or at
and
least
that's by the movie The Gate, by the way, because I don't know if we mentioned that.
I feel like we're going to have to at least watch the second one or decide or try to cover it because it can't be as bad as Thanksgiving. Right. So I feel like we're going to have to cover it.
Isn't he the only returning character?
Yes.
To the second one? So I
need
more Terry.
Exactly.
I need more Terry. Let's do it.
I never knew you were going to resonate with the character so much.
He's a good, solid friend. Good, solid buddy. There with him all the way. Till the end. It's great.
Okay. Okay, so my number 2. I knew that I was going to pick this character for the top 5. I just didn't know where he was going to end up on the list. And that is Finney from The Black Phone. The actor Mason Thames has not been in a ton of things, but I think his performance as Finney in The Black Phone is going to lead to a lot of other things.
Yeah.
Can you imagine being in a basement with ghosts, not being able to get out, a phone's ringing? I mean, yes, it's a movie, but I mean, I think the actor really, it took a lot to bring this character to life. For
a young actor to pull off, where there's like sheer terror, but then there's always this like there's also this will to survive and this inner strength that Finney had.
Yeah.
But then also like I will always think of that scene where finally like he is, to him, seemingly exhausted all attempts at escape, and there's nothing else he can think about, and that is the moment when he finally just breaks down and cries, and you see the little kid that's still within him.
Yeah.
And it's a quite a portrayal. So even though we're giving Mason the actor a lot more love here, but even as the character, it's a hefty role, and it makes the character that much more relatable, or like something you really enjoy watching.
Yeah. I mean, when we talked about The Black Phone, there were things about it we loved and things that we didn't. His performance was definitely one of the high points.
Oh yeah.
And the way that he was communicating with people in the room, out of the room, on the phone. It was, the way it was filmed. He really had to put a lot of effort into the role to bring all of that realism. And I thought, he did a fantastic job.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. Okay. Well, my number 2, making his return to my top 5 lists in a couple of seasons. I don't know why, because I think you always were kind of confused why he doesn't make my top 5 every time. But there's so much to choose from. I like to bounce around. But I think it's time he came back, and I'm done building it up. It is the man, the myth, the legend, the monster hunter, Mr. Burt Gummer.
Yeah, I'm not that surprised. I did enjoy Tremors 5. I didn't know if I would, because the more we dive into it, the more ridiculous it gets.
Oh, definitely. They just get off the wall bonkers. But Michael Gross does not fail to deliver his absolute best in every different, every new movie that comes out. And especially, we talked Tremors 5. I mean, this was just last week, so this is very fresh.
Yeah.
And yeah, that he's just so off the wall. I mean, if you listen to our coverage of Tremors 5, the cage scene, That's all you have to say. Like,
Oh man, the cage scene in its own. I mean that. Yeah. It's funny because I think I've mentioned before that Michael Gross to me will always be the dad on Family Ties.
mm-hmm.
But I think this was, I mean, starting the Tremors series, I feel like was his first, like, foray outside of that role
Mm-hmm.
of Stephen Keaton on Family Ties. So who knew he was going to keep something going for 30 years? Like this character that everyone has grown to love. And we know, based on our Twitter interactions, that there is definitely a huge Tremors fandom out there. So,
which I am very proudly a member of.
Yes, you are. Okay. So that brings me to my number one. And this is the character that I have held up since the very first episode from this season. And I have compared all characters to her. It shouldn't be a surprise that I'm picking a badass female character. Grace Lee Domas from Ready or Not.
Yeah, going all the way back to the season premiere episode.
I
am. Number one.
Yes.
She started on top and was never beat.
Never beat. Nope. Samara Weaving did such a great job bringing this character to life. Grace was feisty. All she really wanted was a family. They were not going to give it to her because they wanted to sacrifice her. No. She kicked ass. She took care of taking everyone out. She was resourceful. I don't think she wanted to believe that that was what was happening, that they were going to try to sacrifice her to a demon. But she did fight very hard, and she dug deep when she needed to. And that scene at the end with her smoking a cigarette on the steps is perfect.
Yes.
Everyone else is gone, and Grace survived. Loved it.
So good. Samara Weaving, we've given her a lot of love on this podcast over different episodes.
Yes.
And yeah, especially with this movie. And yeah, she was just right when she realized shit got real, it's time to, she's got to do what she's got to do, and she's gonna do it.
And she did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm now looking for more Samara Weaving movies for us to cover because we've covered the two that I know really well. So I'm just going to have to find another one. Or she's going to have to film one because it has to happen.
Right. More Samara Weaving. That's what we need.
More Samara Weaving. It's what has to happen.
All right. So that leads to my number one. And go kind of similar to something you picked. As far as a young actor who this was actually, I think, her first role, if I remember things correctly. That was like a first major role, in some small bit parts. But the wonderful Senya Nanua as Melanie in The Girl with All the Gifts.
Not surprised at all.
Yes.
Because that movie was so interesting. It was such a different take on the zombie genre. Because I don't think they could just be considered zombies. I feel like it's just this vampire zombie hybrid to me.
Yeah. It's the cordyceps, fungal zombies are. It's a great thing, but even just the character of Melanie, which huge spoilers for The Girl with All the Gifts. If you haven't watched it, come on, people, get on it. Such a good movie.
I would recommend strongly that you watch it very soon.
Yes, definitely. And yeah, just again, we talked Mason Thames a little bit as Fenny, and so Senya here with this role, again, a heavy and hefty and meaty role for a young actress to do is, there's a lot in this character as kind of this meek, shy, confused child who is also something else than human at the same time. There's a very human side and a very non-human side. And to be able to play both of those, but also once she comes into her own and realizing who she is, what she is, and the power she really has, and the opportunities that she has, and to see her really take that and become loving when she needs to be loving, savage when she needs to be savage, and everything in between, and make some very interesting decisions.
She definitely does. I think too that story to me with her and Miss Justino and their connection, it was just such a compelling story. Mm-hmm. And I read the book for the first time when we were covering that, which was so awesome.
Yeah, so it's a great time. A lot of love for the girl with all the gifts here on
yes,
Your Lives.
Definitely.
And I'm sure we will talk more about it coming up. But
yes, I think so,
so
too.
She definitely earns that number one character spot for me this season. So then we have some honorable mentions for the characters after those top five. Because we always, there's other characters we enjoy. I'll start with these ones. So I had Finney as an honorable mention. We talked about him just a minute ago. So the next one that I'll go with, Coraline definitely gets an honorable mention. Just that twitchy witchy girl. I
really thought she was going to be in your character, so I was surprised she isn't. But I'm not surprised that she's in your honorable mentions.
Yeah.
My first honorable mention is Katie Mitchell from The Mitchells versus the Machines.
Nice. Yeah, she was
so good.
So much fun. She was great. We talked about great LGBT representation as a character that was just very surface. Doesn't have to be very, doesn't have to be a big deal.
Right.
But it's just, she is, and I love it.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, and then all the other ones we've talked about, other than one more that I had, again, mentioned Finney, but also both Blake siblings are just incredible, and I loved Gwen Blake, and that sassy mouth of hers. Gwen was a lot of fun as well. Definitely got to give a lot of love
for a movie that that had some strengths and some weaknesses. There were some great things about it, and the characters were definitely not a problem as far as like the way they were portrayed. Mm-hmm. The reasoning behind it, Pake's always going to have an issue. He always wants to know.
Yeah, it's just. But character-wise, that movie was incredible with characters.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Agreed. So I have a few more. I have Maisie from Fallen Kingdom and Dominion. Mm-hmm. With everybody coming back, it's like, how do you choose just one?
Right.
It's really difficult to choose just one character from that movie. Because, for me, and I know... it's not another top five. I'm just going to say it because this was a really iconic year for me with the movies coming out. All of the characters came back. And so it was a really big deal. Mm-hmm. It was, You
can almost just give honorable mention to like all the Jurassic people.
I could. Because here's the thing. This is the last time that I'm really going to get to talk about them. Mm-hmm. Because, of course, the series is over. But I wanted to pick Maisie because I feel like we saw a lot from her in these two movies, more than I was expecting. My second honorable mention, new character from Dominion, Ramsey. I thought he was fantastic. My last two are Jenny from Monster House because I adored her. She was so smart.
Great little entrepreneur.
She was a great little entrepreneur. And then Michelle Rodriguez played Elena Santos in Battle Los Angeles. I thought she was great. So I wanted to do that. Wanted to include her in my list.
Nice.
But I think we should transition to monsters.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Roar, or growl, or snarl, or boom, or manipulate, whatever they all do.
Yeah.
A lot of interesting ones.
Exactly. I feel like, okay. So, Pake, this time I'm going to make you go first.
All right. Well, my number 5 under monsters, which again, the term is very open to interpretation. It's monsters, disasters, threats, villains, whatever fits that realm. What is the antagonistic entity or thing in the movies that we cover? And so I'm going to start with the man with no name, just the man from Hush, played by John Gallagher Jr. We talked about Kate Siegel's character of Maddie having to survive and fend off this unknown man. Well, the man himself was so creepy.
Oh my God.
And so, I mean, we start off and he's just got a mask on, so it's all just body movement and you're already creeped out. And so you think it's going to take away from the effect when the mask is off, but then John Gallagher Jr. just delivers such a cold performance that it stays really unsettling and creepy the whole time.
Yeah, right from beginning to end. And we covered 10 Cloverfield Lane. He played Emmett. Big contrast between the two.
Yeah.
Huge. I think he was even scarier when he took his mask off because his eyes were just so dead.
Yeah.
And cold and heartless. Just really rough. So, my number 5. I had some trouble with this category because I was trying to figure out what defines a monster. And then I realized that of all the snakes in Anaconda, Paul Cerrone surpassed all of them with his wickedness. He's diabolical, calculating, evil.
Mm-hmm. And he just assaults people with such a strange accent.
Yes, he does, right? Yeah, he's just revolting. And I couldn't get past it because I was trying to decide, would I pick the Anaconda? No, because it's got to be Paul Cerrone, because I did feel traumatized listening to him talk.
John Voight doing a voice.
Remember when we watched The Happening and we were like, Mark Wahlberg is acting like an actor who is acting? Well, Paul Cerrone is doing a voice that's a voice of some voice that he heard somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah, but not to undermine, yes, that the character itself was very devious and just, led to a lot of great moments within that movie for sure.
Yeah, it definitely did. So, Peg, what's your number 4?
My number 4, going back to the second episode of this season, and talk about, again, it's a big spoiler within itself. I don't know why I got to keep mentioning it, but just because I hate to spoil things for people that I know I hate spoilers, but if you're listening to this, hopefully you've listened to a lot of our stuff and are a big fan of the podcast. But yeah, I have to talk about Red, the tethered character of Red, who, spoiler alert, major, ends up not being tethered at all, but is actually Slash, the original Adelaide. So much darkness and things to that, where it's a very empathetic and kind of sad villain that ends up still being very much the villain and very much a monster.
Yeah, definitely. And that Us was Jordan Peele's second film. Of course, he's released a third one now, which we will be covering.
Yes.
At some point.
Next season.
Season.
I'm sure it will jump in. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. She was terrifying.
Lupita Nyong'o. You know how much I love her. So.
I know. I know. We've seen her in a couple of roles in movies on this podcast. So I think my favorite role, though, was in Little Monsters. I really liked that. She was great.
Miss Caroline.
Miss Caroline. Delightful. Okay, so my number 4 is actually a combo character. We did a double dip this season. And so I picked Ellie from Let the Right One In / Abby from Let Me In. Because as we talked about on those podcasts, in the end, when you realize Ellie and Abby and what their motive is and what the result is going to be for their respective boys, you realize just what a monster she really is.
Yeah.
And so I had to go with them on this list. as my number 4.
Yeah, it's a good choice. I did think about that. And I did think, while trying to put my lists together, if I would have included them, that, I would just combine those two movies as kind of one character. It's the same character in two different tellings of the story. But yeah, definitely, the start's kind of empathetic and you're like, well, they just need a friend. But no, it's a lot more sinister. And we really realized that while watching it. And it kind of ended up being really good. So if you haven't listened to Let the Right One In and Let Me In, those double dip episodes, I mean, as much as I can recommend you go listen to the podcast you're currently listening to, my own thing. If I can recommend my own podcasting work, those episodes are really fun because those led to some really deep and interesting discussions, I think.
They did. There were things that we learned, especially on the Let the Right One In. There were things I didn't know about the book and things about the Ellie character that came about that I had never understood before. And so it really was an educational discussion, but it was also a deep discussion about trauma.
Right.
So, Pake, what's your number 3?
All right. My number 3, as much as all of our monster stuff right now has been like deep character analysis monsters, what makes a monster. My number 3 is going to take a break from that into literally just like, ooh, they were cool and I liked them. And that's pretty much the basis of it. But we're going to Jurassic World Dominion because those Atrociraptors were just awesome. Led to, as much as that movie was very hit and miss at the same time, there were really good goods and really bad bads to that movie. The whole running, chasing through the streets, Claire and Owen, respectively, in their own ways with these Atrociraptors. That's my favorite scene of that whole movie. That whole action sequence of the Atrociraptors with both, chasing them down was just some of the best stuff to watch in that movie. And they were legitimately terrifying and super cool looking.
Oh, definitely. I'm down for whatever raptor they want to send us. I love the Pyroraptors as well, but the Atrociraptors, it was something really special.
Yeah.
I mean, the way that they trained them, they're behaviorally to attack, and it was really cool watching them run through the streets. I mean, that's something I had never really seen. I mean, we'd seen, velociraptors on in a much smaller area.
Yeah.
So this really broadened the horizon.
Definitely.
Running around Malta. So, my number 3, kind of connected to a Jurassic franchise movie. I am going with Eli Mills from Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. And the reason I chose him is there are lots of dinosaurs in that movie. But he, to me, was the monster. He was the villain. He was the person they were up against. He did despicable things. He put people in horrifying situations. He put Maisie in a situation where she was going to have to make such a difficult choice. It was all his fault. And so when he met his end, out of all the characters in the Jurassic franchise to meet their end, and this even trumps The Lost World for me, Eli Mills meeting his maker, I'm down.
He smothered an old man with a pillow. You don't come back from that.
You don't come back from that at all. You don't. So yeah, that's my number 3.
Nice. All right. Well, I will go number 2, which is, I think it's the first time we've mentioned a animated film tonight. But
oh my God.
I'm gonna have to go with those black button eyes, the other mother / the beldam from Coraline. Just how wonderfully, wonderfully creepy that she is.
She is horrible. Oh my God. I was in a Walgreens the other day and all the Halloween decorations are out. There was a mask with big black button eyes and I was just like, Oh my god, it's the Beldum. It's just so creepy.
Coraline's having a huge resurgence right now too. They have they just released like a whole new like merch line, like a bunch of different shirts and stuff on the Leica shop. A lot of Coraline stuff that's out right now. So
I've noticed that. I follow them on Facebook, and so everything keeps popping up. Oh, good choice, Pake. Well, my number 2 is the sexually transmitted entity from It Follows. Because that in itself, I mean, it's an entity, but it is a terrifying monster.
Yeah, takes many very disconcerting and uncomfortable and creepy forms that lead to very uncomfortable things and scenes. And it's just, yeah, very, very unsettling.
Yeah, very unsettling. I've seen that movie a couple of times, but this time when we watched it, I actually fully understood things and really read more about the entity and what the purpose was. And it was, I mean, who wants to get a disease like this when you're having sex or from having sex? My God, it's awful.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't want something, you're looking over your shoulder all the time. No way. No, this, it had to be on my list. Had to be. But Pake, I think we need to know what your number 1 is.
All right. My number 1 is very unconventional. You totally never would have guessed it. We discussed this in advance, and this came out of left field for you. Kind of came out of left field for me. But as I was breaking things down, I was like, yeah, no, I got to talk about it because I love goofiness. I love over the top ridiculousness. And there's just something about the Mitchells versus the Machines, where the Mitchell family is in an electronics store taking on a giant Furby. And it's millions of little Furby minions. Oh, because we all know Furbies can be creepy, but then when you have a gigantic one who's trying to kill you and your family and saying terrible things about, what it's going to do to you and the fires of hell or whatever things it was saying, but in Furby language. Yeah, because I'm sure that's what they're always saying. Always, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'll never look at a Furby the same way again after watching this movie. It was the first time I'd ever seen it is for the podcast, so it's like, no, I'm pretty sure that not gonna look at... No, oh my God. No. Nope, not having it. Oh, well, I might as well rip off the Band-Aid. So... this is normally the point where I announce my usual Rexy is number 1 for my monster, because she always is. But not this time. Rexy's been retired.
Mm-hmm. Daphne's decided she hates Rexy now forever.
No. I love Rexy. I love Rexy. But I feel like the torch was passed because Rexy has had a very long, difficult life where she has saved the day so many times and not hurt anyone, really, who didn't deserve it. Let's be honest. I feel like she passed the torch in this movie to another dinosaur. So my number 1 is the Therizinosaurus from Jurassic World Dominion. I loved Eddie. I called him Edward Scissorhands because he had the big old knives on his hands, those claws. So I started calling him Eddie. I just loved this dinosaur. I thought the scene with Eddie and Claire in the water was very cool.
So good.
So cool. And I mean, I could have picked a number of different dinosaurs from this movie, but this is the one that resonated the most with me. I mean, I love Blue too. Don't get me wrong. I'm all down with Blue and Beta and all of that. But this is the dinosaur. I feel like Rexy passed the torch in this one.
Yeah, I mean, quite literally, there at the end of the movie, like Rexy was like, "I can't get it done with the Giganotosaurus, so your turn, stab."
You know what? Rexy, when she needs to have some teamwork, we've seen her do this before with Blue and the Mosasaurus. It's pretty cool. And so I feel like, she needs to retire now and enjoy her life. And she's passed the torch.
Right. That's good. And then, of course, again, we got some honorable mentions. We can do those. So, monster honorable mentions.
I'll go first. I had on my list the Insanity Virus from Bird Box. It's very creepy.
Interesting. I mean, a virus, I guess, is kind of... There were actual creatures, entities that, like, caused something with people, but it's kind of... Yeah.
Yeah, the Insanity Virus. I feel like it was the start of everything that started to go wrong. Mm-hmm. So, I blame it. It's how it goes.
All right, my first would be the Imbandulu, or the new South African evolution of the Ass Blasters in Tremors 5. Just bat wings and craziness, just fun.
They looked so freaking different. Like, I wasn't sure they were the same thing. Like, I was really confused at times because they were so much bigger. I don't know what they're eating in South Africa, but it's helping them. Like, they're able to grow, and it's pretty crazy. So, my next one, I didn't have very many for this one. My next one is Rexy, because I can't have her completely out of my list.
Right.
So I have to have her. She's my next one.
All right. Yeah, trying to run through these quick. But my next one, going back to Us and the Tethered. I mean, Red/Adelaide was incredible, but then also my other favorite Tethered was Pluto, which was the tethered version of Jason, the boy, just with the mask, and he's the firebug, and it was just so creepy. That kid did a great job with it.
Oh man, that. Mm-hmm. My last one, because I only had a couple, is the Rogue Wave from the Poseidon Adventure.
Nice, that's a good one. And then I have two more that I can just go back to back real quick that kind of made my list. As much as I had a lot of complaints about why, Ethan Hawke still did an incredible job as the grabber in the Black Phone, and he was very creepy. So even though I had some, concerns about, like, I wanted to know more, and the reason I wanted to know more is because Ethan Hawke is so compelling. So got to give love to the grabber. And then finally, Constance, or as you would know her, the Monster House.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that scary house. Honestly, I'm really glad that it was an animated film.
Right.
Because I think if it wasn't, it would have been even more frightening. Oh my gosh, we've made it to the movie. And I have to go first. Oh my god. Do you remember back when we first started doing this podcast and we had to do the ratings?
We don't do that anymore. Because at this point, with practically almost 100 movies, I would never be able to keep all of that in track to where it would mean nothing at this point.
Of course it wouldn't mean anything. But I do remember something really funny is that we used to fight over who was going to go first to give the rating. Yeah, we've come a long way since then. Okay, so my number 5 is The Poseidon Adventure. This is one of the first movies that introduced me to this disaster film genre. And I'm just, as I said before, just so glad to have been able to introduce you to it. Because I had a feeling you would enjoy. There were things about it that I thought you would really enjoy. And for me, we had such a great discussion. even if Robin was yelling the whole time.
Yeah. It's a tight quarter ship. Your voice carries. It's okay, man. It's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I've realized from this podcast that I guess I'm a really big Irwin Allen fan, because I mean, it's a 2 out of 2 for me.
I know.
Sure, so.
I'm trying to think, which one do I introduce you to next? Next season we'll have to do another one, but I'm not sure which one it's going to be.
Yeah.
I'll have to look into it.
We'll
I'll have to figure it out. I got time.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, my number 5 to start us off here. Well, start me off. You started us off. Coraline, because Laika has to get some love, of course. Definitely got to give the Laika love this season. But then, yeah, Coraline is just, again, I love those really kind of precocious, smart-ass kids that can still like get stuff done when it needs to get done, and really, you know, when all odds are against them. I mean, she's having to like kind of save her parents and the souls of these ghost children and all of it. It's a lot to put on like an 11-year-old girl, and she's like, all right, I got this. Let's do it. I'll take on this giant spider mother demon. That's fine. I can do it.
The other mother. Yeah. I'd always wanted to watch Coraline, and I hadn't gotten around to it. So that was an opportunity for me to watch it and talk about it. It was my first real introduction to Laika. And I remember immediately after we did the podcast, I went and watched the Box Trolls.
Yes, which doesn't really fit this podcast.
Oh, I love the Box Trolls.
I mean, anything Laika I love.
So cute.
Man.
So cute.
Still trying to find an excuse to just cover all the Laika movies on a podcast.
I know. I feel like we need to. I feel like it's...
You got to reach out to Ben. Ben, are you listening? Let's do a Wilhelm episode about Laika. I don't know if you have seen all of them, but you know what?
Yes.
I can.
Peg's got it down. He knows. He knows exactly what's what with Laika. So my number 4 is Battle Los Angeles. It had really cool aliens, even if one of them reminded me of the AT-AT from Star Wars. I thought the characters were cool. The way that they filmed the movie in like Baton Rouge or Shreveport, Louisiana. The way they and they made it look like Los Angeles was pretty amazing.
Which again, Shreveport is not far from me at all. I've gone to Shreveport many times. It's just right down the road. And so I've been there a lot, and it's hard for me to imagine it looking like LA, and they pulled it off somehow. So
yeah, I really liked this movie. It's another one that I've been holding on to for us to cover. And I just, finally said, okay, let's do this one this week. In part of our, what do you want to do this week? Let's do this. It's a much more laid back approach.
All right. Yeah. Sounds good. Yep. All right. Well, my number 4, talked about it a little bit, but, one of my favorite directors, we've talked characters and, well, really more just kind of monster stuff, but monster characters because that's kind of what he writes. But Jordan Peele's Us, just, the Tethered and the whole twist of that movie. And it's one that really sits with you. I remember the first time I saw it in theaters, like texting with people for days after it, just being like,
this?
What about this? What about that? What about... Man.
That's one of the things I love about this podcast is when we get to cover newer movies, it's like, oh my God, this is going to be so much fun to talk about this, because then we can actually like let it all out. And I love it. It's so cool. So my number 3 is a movie that hasn't gotten any love so far on our lists, but whenever we have been on to talk about a movie, we always have the best time. Like, it's so much fun. Mm-hmm. So I had to include Armageddon. We had so much fun talking to Ben about this movie. He loves it. He was a big fan of the movie. And so for us to all get together and get to talk about it, it's like 3 friends sitting around a table talking about whatever. It just was really comfortable and fun.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we definitely... Yeah, we didn't do a lot of guest stuff this season. We literally only had 2 guests this season, and we'll talk about the other ones.
Yeah.
Sure. But yeah, so it's always wonderful to have Ben on, and yeah, I feel like anytime Ben is on the show, it's going to be top 5
it is
probably, because it's always a great episode, no matter what. I think
we ended up choosing Independence Day last year for one of us did, just because Ben is we just always have fun. We have fun with any guest that comes on our show, really. But I had to include Armageddon is my number 3.
Nice. Well, my number 3, we've talked about it a little bit, but under characters, even though I think a lot of my reasoning was just because of what the movie is. But yes, Taika Waititi's What We Do in the Shadows. We talked about it pretty well, so we don't have to go over a whole lot of it again. But yeah, I mean, it's a vampire mockumentary in New Zealand full of insane special effects and humor, and it's just a blast.
It's so much fun.
It's so funny and visually like just crazy. Yeah, it's great. I mean, when you have Jermaine Clement and Taika Waititi as vampires trying to live in a apartment or a house together in New Zealand, it's
and let's not forget Rhys Darby and the wolves. I mean, they
swearwolves, not
swearwolves,
werewolves, not swearwolves. Yeah,
how can you not love this movie? Oh my goodness, it's so much fun. It kind of was a borderline for. I mean, I did have a couple people say to me, "Well, why are you covering that?" And it's like it has vampires in it; it counts. We can do what we want. We've said that from the beginning.
We make the rules here.
Okay, well, my number 2 is our season premiere movie, starring the amazing Samara Weaving, which I've already talked about how cool she is. Ready or Not. I loved this one. We had such a great time talking about it. It was just hilarious and scary at the same time.
Who knew a game of hide and seek could be such bloody fun? Right?
That should have been the tagline for the movie. Right. Absolutely. Yeah, it's because of this movie that anytime I'm ever watching a show where the character says, run, my mind immediately goes to run, 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 and the song that plays before they go play hide and seek. Always.
It's a solid one. All right. My number 2, gave it a bunch of love earlier. I mean, topped my character list, and so the movie as a whole is a lot of reason for that too. But yes, The Girl with All the Gifts, which screenplay written and the book authored by M.R. Carey, which I talked about already, my favorite author. And so was a huge fan of the book. Then the movie came out. The casting and stuff was just like impeccable. And a lot of the story, again, with Carey behind the screenwriting. So, I mean, it was exactly the story that it was supposed to be. Talked about, Senya just doing so much justice and being incredible as Melanie. But then even, Miss Justineau was so
Gemma
great.
Arterton did such a great job.
Gemma Arterton is, great. And then, Glenn Close was the perfect Dr. Caldwell. Patty Considine, Sergeant Parks. Like, it's just the cast. The casting was so good, and they really played those roles to perfection. And it's a totally different feel of the zombie genre, if you call it that. And
I like that it was different. I like that it pushed the boundaries a little bit, and things were a bit less cut and dried. I feel like there were more things that could have been explored. Right. So,
yeah, it's an interesting world. And now, of course, anytime, because I'm a huge fan of House of the Dragon is running right now, and anytime I see Patty Considine as King Viserys, I'm just like, Sergeant Parks.
This is what happens when the spores take over. No,
right.
Well, my number 1 is not a surprise to anyone. The only question is, which one was it going to be? I picked Jurassic World Dominion, and the reason I picked it is because it was our only other episode that we had a guest on. Our friend Damien guested for the first time. He's a passionate fan of dinosaurs and of these movies. Even though the movie was not everything I'd hoped it would be, it gave me what I wanted, which was more dinosaurs, and it brought back the original cast for those nostalgic moments. And that's really all I needed. And I loved our discussion. We had such a great time talking with Damien about it, and it's one of my favorite episodes. It is my favorite episode of the season. Well, it's I mean, with this list of movies, it's either the episode of the movie or both. And for me, it's kind of both. I just really enjoyed our discussion about it. I hated waiting to talk about it, but I loved our discussion.
Yeah, and it was great having Damien on, and I'm sure we will definitely have to have him back on in the future. And he's going to look real bad if I'm wrong, but he's usually always one to give us feedback on these look back specials. So hopefully we'll hear from him later. We'll see.
Yeah, I hope so. Damien!
Love you. Please come back. We'll always have you.
Yeah.
So I will round out my list. Number one movie of the season for me. An animated film. We've talked about characters and monsters from it. But just the wild insanity that is the Mitchells versus the Machines. That it's like the goofiest stuff imaginable is in that movie. The humor is just off the charts. The voice cast is incredible, but also that it has so much heart. Like, who knew that like an animated movie that is so hilarious and silly could have multiple moments through it that has me in tears and all in my emotions, you know?
I had never seen this movie when you suggested it, and I'm so glad I watched it. I can't wait until my nieces are old enough so that we can watch it together, because I think they'll really like it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It's great. It's wacky, but it's so much fun.
Always. Wow, so I guess we're ready to do some honorable mentions. Pake, why don't you tell me what you have?
All right. Again, some of the honorable mentions we've talked about, so I can skip over those. So the first one that we haven't talked about in movies is Hush. Mm-hmm. Again, Mike Flanagan, one of my other absolute favorite. I've given some love to like 3 of my like top 5 directors in existence right now.
I know.
I have to pick because Taika Waititi, Jordan Peele, and Mike Flanagan are all in my top 5 list easily, no matter, like, for sure, probably my top 3.
No,
and so
I don't know, Pake. Edgar Wright is really high on your list.
Yeah. Edgar Wright's definitely probably number 1, but they're all within the top 5 for sure, at least top 4. Because right now I don't even know who
We need to cover another Edgar Wright film.
Yeah,
we need to find one.
There's a few
that fit that we could do.
This Cornetto trilogy, all we could do.
Oh my God, Hot Fuzz is Hot Fuzz. I go back and forth between Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead, trying to decide which one is my favorite because I love both of them for different reasons. Mm-hmm. Oh my God. Okay.
Anyway, Edgar Wright tangent, which is weird because it started with Mike Flanagan, who's one of my favorite directors. Yeah, so doing Hush, and we've got some more Mike Flanagan movies we definitely can cover and should cover as well.
Yes, we do. I'm going to go down with The Black Phone. Again,
nice.
There were great things and not so great things. However, as a whole, the conversation that we had about it was so much fun. Like, It's hard because I feel like all of our conversations are fun. So, yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah. All right. I only have Black Phone was in my honorable mentions. Mm-hmm. So, again, even though I seem to, the more that I watch it and the more I think about it, the more I like it. Mm-hmm. The more that I sit over it. It's just that one thing. I'm like, I just wanted more.
Yeah.
But I'll never get it, so that's okay. Because even reading the short story, I didn't get it. So yeah, I only have one more that we haven't already talked about because like Poseidon and Armageddon were in there. So I love those. But so the only other one that's in here and we talked about in characters is The Gate, because that was another
oh my goodness,
really fun one that I had just never even heard of, wasn't even on my radar at all until I just like stumbled upon it and was like, let's just cover this movie. I don't know what it is, but let's do it. And I'm glad that I did, because is it one of the greatest movies ever made? No, but was it a lot of fun to watch and talk about? Absolutely.
Pake, if you like The Gate, I know of a bunch of others that we can cover from that time frame.
All right.
They may be worse than The Gate. If Mark is listening, I'm thinking Ghoulies and Critters and a bunch of others from that time frame that were, well, I'm not sure they hold up, but we'll see how it goes.
Oh, yeah, I think like there's like a newer version of Ghoulies that was covered that they did on this latest season, or they will be doing latest season. It's currently running right now of Mystery Science Theater. So,
oh boy,
maybe it's one of those weird movies. Though,
okay,
but
cool. Okay, I also had Coraline on my list, and my last one is It Follows. So we've made it through our look back at the last season 4. Mm-hmm. Can't believe that it's season 4. I did also want to mention this was the first time that we covered an episode of Two Senate's Horror Stories. And we haven't heard from anyone yet whether they liked it or didn't like it. So maybe it's something we'll do again.
Right. We'll pat our own selves on the back. We
we will.
A like on that episode on Twitter from Kevin Alves, who started it. And we didn't even like tag him or hashtag anything. I don't know how you found it, Kevin. If you're listening, you're not. But however he found it, I'm glad that he did and gave us a like. So cool.
Yeah, I tagged the show's official Instagram, and we got a like, and 2 eyeballs commented. So that was kind of fun. You never know what's going to happen when you tweet out, you tag people or don't tag them. You just never know.
Right.
So that brings us to something that I kind of came up with since we've been going for almost 100 episodes. This is episode number 99. I thought it would be cool to go back and look at and figure out which episodes are our favorites or mean something to us in the last, 100 or 99 episodes.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make Pake go first.
Make me go first.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Again, logically, this doesn't always have to make sense. I looked under these for different parameters, because here's what my number 5, what I'm starting with, is a movie that was already in my top 5 earlier from this season, but it was not number 1. But now it's in this list, and my number 1 from today's list is not in this top 5 overall. But there's for different reasons that span out past just the movie and the book and things like that.
I know exactly what it is.
Yes. So my number 5 is The Girl with All the Gifts. Just again, how much that means to me. I love the book, the adaptation, the movie, M.R. Carey being my favorite author. And then of course, maybe there's some more reasons that go on past just our coverage of the episode, that because of us doing that episode has spread out to somewhere else. And that's the biggest tease you're going to get. You got to still wait a little bit longer.
Yes.
But not much longer at all.
Yeah.
So definitely. So yeah, I kind of picked these top 5 as like what also did really good things for this podcast, or like were like really notable moments in this podcast. So
yeah,
The Girl with All the Gifts definitely, starts that list off.
I have similar thought when I did my list. My number 5 is an episode that it got some love on YouTube, not so much on downloads, but this was the episode when I realized that I could podcast. because I was new to podcasting when we started Run for Your Lives. I had done a couple. I'd been on a guest on a couple of friends' podcasts. And it was Black Sheep.
Nice.
We had so much fun during that conversation that when we were done and we logged off Zoom, I thought, I can do this. And we did, I think, A Quiet Place the next week.
Yeah.
And I really was feeling like at that point, I just remember feeling like I could do it. Like I had enough confidence to keep going. 'Cause I was really nervous. When we first started, I used to drink White Claws to relax because I was really nervous. But Black Sheep, that episode just made me realize that I could do it.
Jumping all the way back to season 1.
I know.
It's cool.
It's crazy, right?
All right. My number 4. One of my absolute favorite. I think it was last season. I think it was a season 3 movie because with the top 5s, it ended up making a very interesting top 5 list in both categories. And it was something that I've always really been a big fan of, big kind of under the radar movie, kind of an indie film that it was a blast to introduce you to. And yes, of course, I'm talking about Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon. Because it's in a world all its own. What you get like a mockumentary comedy movie that just turns on its head into a slasher horror movie so fast. I love the creativity behind that.
I remember you talking about it, and when we first started talking about it, you were like, well, I don't know. Does it fit? Should we do it? And we just decided to do it because that's what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really unique. And the way that it really fit into our podcast, it isn't necessarily conventional, but it worked because it was a very different movie. And I agree, it's way underrated.
Mm-hmm. And I've still been waiting all of these years since it came out for the sequel or prequel or something. They've been teasing, wanting to do more with that with Leslie Vernon, and it's been in the works forever, but they still haven't done it. And I'm hoping it happens. I need more.
Yeah. You need more? Are you sure?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Well, my number 4 is a movie. I think it was still in season 1. Not all of these are season 1, I promise. But this movie, it was the first post. We started posting our episodes on YouTube pretty early. I think it was like a month in, I started posting them. This was the first one that really got a lot of views and listens. And I loved our conversation about it. It fits in our genre, in this genre, but it's just not, it's not like a classic look at a monster or a disaster film. And that was Love and Monsters.
Yeah. I think that was season 1 also.
It was.
Maybe towards the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, that movie was I remember just like when it was first coming out, and I was like, this looks kind of interesting. I mean, Dylan O'Brien's always kind of meh for me. And so I was like, yeah, I'll just give it a shot. I didn't expect to
love it.
Absolutely love that movie as much as we did. Man.
I loved that movie so much. There's just so many things about it that were wonderful. And the conversation that we had about it. Again, it was still early in the podcast, but the more I did, the more I felt comfortable. And this one I felt really, really good on. It was just a lot of fun. And again, I did not know that it was going to get so much attention on YouTube, but it's still, I think it's the one that's been viewed the most on YouTube.
So, if there's any YouTube listeners out there, which I don't know because the numbers on that are so wacky all over the place.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anybody who listens on YouTube regularly. I think they just find certain episodes.
Yeah.
But hey, I appreciate the love that some of our movies do get on there and some of our episodes. It's
crazy. Me too. It means a lot.
All right. Number 3. This one will always sit with me because it was the first time, and I think maybe still the only time, I have openly cried on this podcast talking about a movie where it literally, something in the movie while talking about it caught me emotionally in such a way that I just, it waterworks, and I didn't even expect it. And I'm like, oh, I need to compose myself. What is happening? And that is The Impossible. That movie, again, just something that like so under the radar to me. Didn't think much of it, but then just like, hey, we'll give it a shot. And it just snuck up on me on how hard it actually hit me and how important it was. And it was just interesting to see. Yeah, just a baby Tom Holland.
But even then, he had such range.
Right.
Like, he was so good in that movie. So good. So, I mean, just way above his years, I think. Mm-hmm. For sure. Wow. Okay. Well, my next one, and I realized something really funny with my list. In that
they're all season 1. No.
Well, the first 3 are. After that, it's better. But I think it was because those were milestones for me. Like, those were things that I felt, when I really was starting to get to feel good and remember the conversations. Like, they always stick out at me. And this was Attack the Block. I loved the conversation we had about Attack the Block. It was funny and who could forget Pest? I mean, there's just so many wonderful things about it. And the fact that it's season 1 and we recorded that episode almost 2 years ago.
Wow.
Blows my mind. Because...
And they are officially working on a sequel that we will cover eventually when that happens.
I'm so excited.
Something to look forward to.
I'm so excited. I can't wait for it. I just want to revisit those characters and the world they live in. Like, it was just so much fun.
Yeah. It's a good one. All right. So number 2. So with that, you are done with season 1.
Yes, I'm done with season 1.
Well, then I'm going to go back to season 1. And actually, not just season 1. I'm going to go back to Run for Your Lives episode 1, where it all began with Run for Your Lives. I got to talk Tremors. Of course, it's where the podcast started. It's my beloved movie and franchise that has spawned into us covering a different Tremors movie every season. And it's just become such a thing that, of course, I've got to give Tremors love. And the whole franchise and series as a whole, but definitely, I mean, it all started with Fred Ward and Kevin Bacon out in the Nevada desert,
May he rest in peace.
Yeah.
If you listen to our Tremors episode for last week, you will hear that we did a little shout out, or rather just mention that he passed away, and such a big part of the Tremors universe. But I remember recording the first episode. I remember my desk was in a completely different way than it is now. And
I was in a whole different location.
You were. I was nervous, and I think that's when you told me to try the White Claw. Again, because it's it's one thing to guest on a podcast. It's another thing to like have your own. It's just a different feeling. And I was nervous, but I feel like we just have grown so much since then. And it was a great starting point. And that movie...
Yeah, I mean, I haven't gone back to listen to it. I probably never will. But,
I don't want to.
I mean, I'm sure it is a 100% different show than what you're listening to right now. But it was the birth of Run for Your Lives. It's where it started, really. So
I know it's
I have to give it love.
I know
it's very important.
I feel like at the time when we first started, I thought we were like really good friends, and now I'm just like, we were good friends, but we're like, we know each other so much more now. And it's just, it's definitely, our friendship has grown too throughout this whole thing, this crazy world. But now I can't go back to season. Not going to let me go back there, huh?
No, once I've touched on Tremors, we can't go back any further than that.
Well, season 1, episode 1 is the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So, my number 2 is The Cabin in the Woods.
Ooh.
I loved our conversation. We had so much fun. I feel like that was my whole... When I was putting my list together, I was thinking about, what ones do I remember? What were the most fun? Well, all of them are fun. Some stick out for different reasons. And the number of monsters we had in this, and you had a whole list of the monsters. We went through the whole thing. Oh, I mean, that movie was made for this podcast. I mean, really. And we didn't cover it right away either. It was like...
Was that season 2?
I think it was season 2. Yeah. It was almost to the end of season 2.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah. We talked about this in that episode, if you listen to it. Yeah, Chris Hemsworth, like, right before he
broke
blew up.
out, yeah.
Thor had just come out. Thor was out.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it was, Chris Hemsworth before he was Chris freaking Hemsworth.
Yes.
It's
Before he blew up. Yeah. It's crazy.
Jesse Williams, who played Holden in Cabin in the Woods, which I also was a big fan of there, he just randomly popped up in Secret Headquarters, which is a new movie that just came out this year with Owen Wilson and Walker Scobell from Adam Project.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because I remember, like, it's a kid's movie. It's like on Paramount. It's PG. It's just very, very kid movie. But then I was like, oh my gosh, that's the guy from Cabin in the Woods. Like, okay, wow, I haven't seen him or thought about him much since Cabin, but, like, still rocking it, still going.
Oh, yeah. This also gave us the amazing Bradley Whitford as Hadley.
Oh, man.
Who all he wanted was a merman.
And he got
got the merman. We had Richard Jenkins. I mean, this was a fantastic cast, and the movie was great.
So we're at number 1.
Yes.
And I bet you're real curious what my number 1 is, but you also might totally know what it is. I don't know.
Well, I can tell you one of them you've already given. This one, I don't know for sure, but I guess I'll find out in a minute.
All right. So, calm down. Well, calm down. I'm already calm. It's Cooties. Come on. Yeah.
I knew it.
Yeah.
The 2 movies that I thought would be on your list were Cooties and Tremors.
Yeah, of course it's freaking. Yeah, and they were 1 and 2. Yeah. So you know me very well.
I did.
Yeah. Cooties is. Talk about goofy, silly. I mean, it's like, it's a zombie movie, but it's also just a bunch of children murdering the funniest actors that exist. I mean, Rainn Wilson, Elijah Wood.
Oh, it's precious. It really is. It's so much fun.
Man. Nassim Pedrad. Oh, man.
It was so good, right? I mean, it was just amazing.
Jack McBrayer. Yeah, it's...
But Pig, what about Lee Wanell?
Lee Wanell, the just awkward sex ed coach.
Oh my god!
Man,
so bad.
And of course, my beautiful drummer Kim, Allison Pill. Yeah, oh, she's not drummer Kim in this movie in Cooties, but I mean,
no.
Any Scott Pilgrim reference I can make, I'm going to make it.
Of course, sure, yes.
But yeah, but yeah, Cooties is easily number 1. Again, it's just no matter how many times I watch it, I will be laughing out loud every time. How much any opportunity I get to reference and go, I will. So, yeah.
I bet that you can't guess what my number 1 is.
Well, it's not in season 1, so it's not going to be Jurassic Park. Even though it totally could be.
No, it's not.
But it might still be in that franchise.
No.
Really?
Yeah. This movie introduced me to the amazingness that is Miyavi.
Ah, wow. Okay. Which again, I think this is the first time you watched this movie was going into it for the podcast.
Yes.
Yeah.
But oh my God. It was when I realized that the whole Kong Godzilla universe could be really good.
Mm-hmm.
Because the first film did not floor me. This movie, I fell in love with it.
Mm-hmm.
The whole thing. We covered that whole series of movies in a very short period of time.
Yeah, we had to get ready for, Godzilla versus Kong. We were like, we got to get there. We got to be ready.
Yeah. So we had to go through a bunch of different movies. This one will always be one of my top favorite movies.
Yeah.
It just will.
Always just picture Tom Hiddleston in a gas mask just slicing through bird creature things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Always.
Iconic.
Yeah. It was really hard for me to come up with this list. I will not lie. There were others that I did not say that I'm going to give you my honorable mentions, even though I know you don't have any.
Yeah. It's funny enough. It sounds crazy, but literally this list didn't come to me in a dream, but like as close as you can get. I was literally like, I don't know what I'm going to do for this top 5 overall. And then I was just going to bed a couple nights ago, and then like literally I'm like falling asleep. I'm like, what these movies are going to be? And then like these 5 and only these 5 came to me. I had to play with the order a little bit, but those were the 5 that were like, this is what you will cover.
Yes.
I am the movie gods in your head, and I'm telling you. So I was like, all right, we'll go with it. So it's kind of crazy. It worked that way.
Well, these are also, some of them are from season 1, but there are some from other seasons too. Quiet Place, which is kind of connected to Black Sheep, because that was really when I realized I could do this. Jaws, Jurassic World, Dawn of the Dead 78. I loved getting to share that movie with you because you had never seen it. Made me happy. And I also thought it was funny that we each had the same favorite movie with the same title, but different versions. The Poseidon Adventure, What We Do in the Shadows, Independence Day, and Little Monsters.
Nice. Yeah, Dawn of the Dead, 2004, would have been probably number 6 on my list.
Yeah.
It was right on the, if I had a...
Yeah. I think for me, a lot of the movies early on in the first and second season, that was when I was really getting comfortable and feeling better about podcasting. And that's why they stick out to me more. But also, I feel like we just recorded them 6 months ago. Mm-hmm. And it's been almost 2 years, or in some cases 2 years.
Yeah, like when you said it's been 2 years since we did Attack the Block, and I'm like, that doesn't feel that long ago when we talked about that movie.
Yeah. But it has been.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like we have made it through our look back special, our 4th look back special. I'm so glad that we decided to do this after the first season, because I think it's a lot of fun to go back and look at everything that we've done.
Yeah.
And then to go back and look at everything we've done way back to the first one. I think I got the idea because I was going back and looking at episodes and just kind of thinking, oh, I remember that one. It was a lot of fun. Because spoiler alert, we have a lot of fun on this podcast.
Just a little
Just
bit.
a little fun. Lots of laughing. When appropriate.
And sometimes when it's not.
Yeah.
Oh man, so we did it.
We have.
Another look back. Another kind of recap on the greatest moments of the season. And so we had some great ones.
We did.
It was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun, for sure.
So here's looking forward to season 5, which will actually be here way sooner than you think.
Yes, it will, but you're going to have to wait till our 100th episode to find out what's going on with that.
Mm-hmm. So you got to listen to that, and you'll find out what that is very soon, because we just got to get through feedback and stuff, and then we can tell you what's coming up on episode 100 and when that's happening. So I'm just waiting on the feedback phone to ring. It's cute. Oh, it's not plugged in. Hang on, let me.
I know it's Okay. I know it's an old phone, but...
I know, because I was like, it's usually about the time it starts ringing. But
yeah, you have to plug it in, Pake. It's one of those old ones.
Well, let me pick it up so it stops ringing now. All right, we do have some feedback this week, and I always love this. I love the look back feedback. Always a lot of fun.
It is. We get lots of different thoughts on people's favorites, and I really enjoy that as well.
So I guess I will go ahead and take this first one, and this one's a little different, but yes, over on Twitter, our friends there at the Tremor Saga shared an article with us. So I'm not going to read you the whole article. I'm not going to go into all that. There's a lot. So definitely go check that out on our Twitter if you want to. It's a graffitiwithpunctuation.com article. It's really cool. But basically shares this story that, because it did take a while. When we did Tremors last week, we said there's quite a big gap between 4 and 5.
Yes.
And so the gist of the article is that they were going to do 5 a whole lot sooner. And there was a whole idea and plan for like a Tremors 5, a Gummer Down Under. They were going to film in Australia and do a whole Australian story. And it ended up just kind of falling through and not happening. And it wasn't until way later with different people that Bloodlines happened. But, yeah, that whole story and script never happened. And because now even they've done more and they've gone to some different locations, but it has not been Australia. So yeah.
I want the Australia movie. I want it. I want Gummer Down Under. I mean, come on. That is a movie title waiting to be made. Okay.
Right.
It is.
So maybe they can circle back around to that in some way. Keep it in mind.
I hope so.
Tremors.
I hope so. Cross your fingers.
Mm-hmm.
We heard from Tony. She says, congratulations on another great season. Thank you, Tony. It's hard to pick a favorite this time around. I liked almost everything. I even started typing them out, and it was ridiculous because it's basically the whole season. Aww. So I'll just leave a couple of recommendations. Werewolves Within, The Reef, 47 Meters Uncaged. The sharks look like bad, but the story is pretty good. And I'm sure I'll think of more, but these are the 3 I really enjoyed. I'm looking forward to your new season. Happy spooky season. Oh, favorite monster. Peter from What We Do in the Shadows. Who let Peter out? Actually, the whole cast of vampires and werewolves from What We Do in the Shadows. The button-eyed mom from Coraline. Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. The other mother. Ethan Hawke in Black Phone. He looked amazing. Sinister, I have mentioned before, is better. Yes, Tony, Sinister is on my list.
We'll get there.
Potentially season 5. See, I couldn't even pick a favorite monster. Too many to choose from. See you next season.
All right. Awesome. Which, I don't know, the beginning of next season may be sooner than you think. We'll get there. All right. This one comes from Alma Contreras. Says, I listen to most of your stuff, even when I haven't gotten to the movie. Probably because I've become a huge Pake fan, and I really like the coverage on Hush, Jurassic Dominion, Black Phone, and Last Night in Soho. Aw, thank you. Felt weird reading that for myself. But yeah, because she's been an avid listener of Strange Indeed for a long time. So really appreciate you following along over here as well.
Yeah, thank you, Alma. It's good to have you listening to us every week. So Wendy says, very briefly, it has to remain Tremors.
Yes. And finally, we do have a little, we have feedback from Apple iTunes themselves, the whole corporation. No, I'm kidding. But we do have a review over on Apple iTunes. We do talk about leaving reviews on Apple, and somebody did, and it's pretty great. So I just wanted to read that, not just to pat ourselves on our own back, but whoever left that, if you're listening, then, as a thank you, get your words written or read on the podcast. So this review says, enjoying this podcast. I just want to let you guys know that I am totally enjoying tuning in. I don't always get a chance to comment, but here I am listening. Pake and Daphne, I love your insights on the various films.
Oh, so thank you.
Thank you so much.
To whoever left that, thank you so much. It's really appreciated. So last week, Pake said he was hoping we would hear from our good friend Damien, that he would keep up his tradition of sending in feedback. And this time, he sent us a voicemail. So here it is.
Hey, Daphne and Pake, it's Damien. I just wanted to leave a voicemail for your look back special, these past 25 episodes. I'm going to give you my top 3 movies that you've covered. Something a little different this time. But anyway, Anaconda is coming in the number 3 spot. It has always been a guilty pleasure of mine. I know all its flaws, but I still love it anyway. It's just such a strange concept of a movie, and the actors don't really mesh too well, but I don't know. Overall, I love it. I think it has to do with Jon Voight's character. He's just so over the top, but it's so much fun. So that's my number 3. My number 2 is going to be Armageddon. Gosh, when that came out, I just remember watching it like whenever it was on an HBO free preview. I know I owned it on VHS. It's just a classic disaster movie. It has such a wonderful cast. It's funny at points. It's intense at points. Also another Owen Wilson movie. I just thought of that. So anyway, I'm going to pick Armageddon for number 2. And of course, number 1 is going to be Jurassic World Dominion. Obviously, because I was on with you guys and we had a blast talking about it.
We did.
Definitely encourage people to go back and listen if they haven't, because we talked about everything, what we liked, what we disliked. But that was so much fun doing that with you guys. So that's definitely my number 1 pick. I just want to say congratulations also on 100 episodes. That is such a humongous feat, and I'm just really proud of you guys. I'm glad I've been along for the ride, and I look forward to so many more of your episodes, the next 100. So we will talk to you later, and take care. Bye.
Thank you, Damien.
Oh, yeah. Thanks so much. It was great. And yeah, of course you're going to pick yourself for number 1. No, you should, because that was a great one. We had so much fun, and you were always invited back anytime you want to come.
Yeah, we need to pick another movie, Damien. We got to talk about that. Well, if you would like to submit feedback like Damien did, Alma, Tony, Wendy, and our good friends at the Tremors Saga, who, by the way, Pake, have an answer to your question that you gave them last week. It's pretty awesome.
So yes, if you guys are listening, we'll be in touch. We'll be in talks, because I don't know, are you guys kind of behind the whole Santa Fe thing? I'm not sure if that's kind of the context, or at least you know kind of what's going on there. But yeah, we'll be in touch, because it'll be fun.
Yeah, I think Pake's getting a little excited.
Yeah.
So if you'd like to submit feedback like anyone I mentioned earlier, you can do so by going to our Facebook page at facebook.com/runforyourlivespodcast. You can email us at runforyourlivespodcast@gmail.com, tweet at us at RFYL DM us on Instagram at runforyourlivespodcast. If you're enjoying the show, tell your friends. We are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, pretty much all other podcast players, including YouTube. Go to runforyourlivespodcast.com for all the links you'll ever need, and give us a review on Apple Podcasts like we read this week. That's the best way to share the love and get us out there even more. We really appreciate it. It's interesting, I wanted to add, that we learned recently that it's those, likes and subscriptions and comments on Apple iTunes that help you in the discoverability of podcasts. So we'd really appreciate it if you guys would give us a little love over there.
Yeah. Always appreciate everything you guys do for us. But yeah, every little bit helps getting us out there so more people can hear us. And the more followers and listeners and stuff that we have, the better chances we have to do some really cool, bigger things, which we'll talk about something pretty soon that we got to do. So yeah, hopefully just onward and upward, right?
Yes.
So speaking of that stuff, let's go ahead and get into it with some shout outs of stuff going on in the podcast universe around us. what you got coming up here as well. So we'll get there. Of course, my other podcast, Strange Indeed. We this week wrapped up our coverage of Lock and Key forever. That's it. Yeah, the series finale. It was a really good, long 2.5 hour conversation. We definitely had a lot to say about the finale, but it overall was really good, I think, and we had a great conversation there. So definitely check that out. That should be out today, and if not tomorrow. But I think Rima is an editing queen, so she should have it up pretty soon. So yeah.
She is.
Be sure to check that out if you're a fan of Lock and Key. And then we will have a week off on Strange Indeed. And then the week after October 7th, we'll be back with Mike Flanagan's Midnight Club. So
I cannot
doing
wait.
that very soon, and I can't wait.
I'm going to do a better job at staying on track with watching that show every week. Because I want to be able to listen. I got behind on Lock and Key, so I couldn't listen. So I'm really excited for Midnight Club to start.
It's going to be so good. But it's Flanagan, so we know it's going to be
Of course
so
it's going to be good.
Of course, then Podcastica has so many great things. You can check out House Podcastica for everything thrown together, but then also if you're a fan of specific things, always a lot of great podcasts over there. And go subscribe to them individually for the shows you like to give them some extra love. Like we said, when you talked about discoverability, help them really blow up and get out there a little more. But yeah, lots of great things. Andor on the Star Wars TV cast with Jonathan and James. That show has been fantastic. So definitely check that out. Cobra Kai cast has been super good as well. Jason, Richard, and Rima breaking down this latest season, 2 episodes at a time. Cast of the Rings with Anwin and Penny. Also great coverage over there. We have the Rings of Power series over on Amazon Prime. Dragon cast with Rima and Kristen. I mean, House of the Dragon is just insanely good.
Isn't it? And this week they had David on to talk with them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that was my I had a almost 3-hour drive home from a concert last night, and that was a lot of my listening was Dragon cast. They did a great job this week. So She-Hulk cast is just killing it over there as well. Greg and Penny doing some great work over there. She-Hulk's been so much fun. You can check out Mark and Jamie on the Sandman cast as they continue to work their way through the season of Sandman over on Netflix. And then, of course, I saved this one till the end because I like to throw it to you to help plug, because Handmaid's Tale is back and running. Episode 4 this week. So you guys been doing some good stuff over there.
You know, this show is so dark. It's so well done, but it's so dark at times. And the conversation we had about this episode, we dug into some things because some of the things that happened in the episode just reminded us of things that were happening in the world today. So we didn't get too political. We were just talking factually about things that were going on in the world and connections. I think it's actually was one of our best episodes this season was last week's, and looking forward to bringing forward episode 5. It's going so fast.
Yeah. So it's always that show is back. That's great. It's always awesome. So much good podcast stuff to listen to. Shows for everybody.
I know, and trying to keep up with your friends who are podcasting on shows that you like, but you can't keep up with watching them every week.
Right.
I mean, there's only so much time in a day. Yeah, it's rough.
Right. Speaking of shows coming back, though, I mean, Walking Dead cast, they did just release an episode over Fargo, which is one of Jason's favorite movies. That is out, and he actually is joined by guest host Jade, who you would know her if you were listening to Strange Indeed. She has been leaving us some incredible voicemails over on Lock and Key this season. And her voicemails have been so good that Jason was like, hey, want to come do an actual podcast and come talk Fargo with me? So, yeah, go check that out. She's got quite a mind for podcasting, so it's really cool. And then, of course, Walking Dead returns like next week. So
I know. Are you ready?
No.
Are you ready for the show to end? I thought I was okay with it, but I'm starting to question if I'm really ready for it to say goodbye.
Right.
It's just so instrumental in so many things. And that show, I don't think the writers sat around in a room thinking, well, how can our show connect people, build fan groups, but it kind of did. And so I feel like the show is responsible for me meeting all of the other Zeds, and now I'm deciding I don't think I'm ready for it to end.
Mm-hmm. We got Last of Us coming up. I know that's what Jason's looking forward to afterwards. We've still got a little while, but...
Did you watch the trailer? I know you don't watch...
absolutely not.
Oh, Pake. I'm going to tell you this. It didn't spoil anything, and I'm not going to spoil anything right now. I'm all in on that show. I was all in before, but I'm really all in after seeing the trailer. It's got everything. It's going to be incredible.
All right. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I might watch the trailer. Probably still won't. Because I know I'm going to watch it, so I don't need any convincing.
Oh, but it just gets you excited.
Right.
Yeah, it got me really excited. Like, I want it to come out next week. Of course, it's not going to, but
right.
Yeah.
And then lastly, I do want to always give some love to TV podcast industries, because those guys work so hard over there, covering so many great shows. So they are working on She-Hulk, Sandman, and Rings of Power as well over there. So go give them some love, give them some listen, because that is great conversation as well.
Yeah, they had a little break, and then they've just been churning out episodes. I don't know how they do it.
Right. But with all of that said, of course, we got to plug what's happening next week here on Run for Your Lives, but not even next week. How about just a few days from now? We've been teasing this episode 100. Is it finally time to talk about what we're doing?
It is, but I don't think I can share that information, Pake. I think you have to share it.
All right, I'm down. Yes, so episode 100, you don't have to wait till next Friday to listen to. We're going to be releasing it on Monday, right after this weekend. So it will be up soon, because we're excited about it. We recorded this thing a while back. It's a special little thing. So, of course, we've been teasing it a lot. I mean, even this episode with our look backs, talking about Girl with All the Gifts, things like that. When we covered that movie, I give so much love to the author and writer of the screenplay for the movie as well, M.R. Carey. He's incredible. So, yeah, we reached out to him after his kind of feedback when we covered Girl with All the Gifts, and we got in touch with him, and he sat here on Zoom with us for a little while, and we got to interview M.R. Carey, talk all things Girl with All the Gifts, the book to movie adaptation, some of the casting, talked about other things he's worked on, his influences, things like that. It was a really fun conversation, and I think if you guys are fans of Girl with All the Gifts in any way, or just listening to such a great mind, an author and writer and creative individual, definitely check that interview out, because it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we're really excited to bring it forward. Been kind of chomping at the bit to do it for the last, I think it's we recorded about 6 to 8 weeks ago. So we're both really excited to get it out there so you guys can hear it and celebrate the fact that we've hit a major milestone at 100 episodes.
Yeah.
That is, wow. It feels like we just started recording 6 months ago, and now we're at 100. It kind of blows me away a little bit.
Super cool. So super cool. Yeah. And then, of course, I can still say what's coming up next week on Run for Your Lives, because yes, this is the season finale, and we usually take about a month or so off. But you guys realize that starting next week, it is the month of October, and we can't do a podcast that focuses a lot on horror movies and scary films and thrillers and not be here and put episodes out in the month of October. What kind of monsters would we be to leave you without that, right? We would be the number one worst monsters of the season.
Yes,
so
we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
We're going to take a break, but we're not taking a break yet.
Right. So season 5 actually starts next weekend. We will be doing all through the month of October. You go ahead and get the first 5 episodes of the new season.
Yes.
Before we take our break, and then we'll come back around the Christmas season and come back with some fun stuff there too. So but what were we doing for the month of October?
So for October, we are doing a double dip.
Ooh,
or a quadruple dip.
Quadruple dip.
Yeah. We are tackling one of Stephen King's longest books turned into a TV miniseries and then 2 theatrical release movies. So we are going to cover the 1990 TV miniseries It, followed by both of the It movies that were directed by Andy Muschietti.
Yeah.
But since the TV miniseries is kind of long, we're splitting it into 2 parts, much like it was when it aired on TV. It was split into 2 parts. So next week, you're going to get It, the 1990 miniseries, part 1.
Yeah.
And then we're going to make our way through It-tober, as Pake has decided to call it. And then on Halloween, we're going to drop a very special episode and continue a tradition that we started when we first started recording this podcast. And we are going to end Halloween with Halloween Ends.
On Halloween.
On Halloween. So
Halloween ends with Halloween Ends.
Yes.
On Halloween.
Yes.
When it ends.
So yeah, we couldn't move forward without finishing up the Halloween series. And I'm just hoping that Halloween Ends is better than Halloween Kills.
Hopefully Halloween ends Halloween on a good note.
Yes, please. Yeah, I don't think I could go through that again.
So yeah,
No,
so
that was rough.
Right. Yeah. So all of you guys and Michael Myers and Pennywise and the Losers Club and Laurie Strode and all of these people can come join us and hang out with Run for Your Lives for the month of October. We're not going anywhere for October.
Right. Yes, we will take the month of November off, but after that we'll be back in early December with more episodes. We have some good ones already planned out, so stay tuned for that. But we have reached the end of this episode, Pake.
You did.
Thanks, everyone, for listening. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And if you have to run, you better run for your lives.
Bye-bye.